Hey, so I just wanted to put out a video log for a moment just to talk about an intergenerational conversation and about this time in history. So, an intergenerational conversation, we can see it in philosophy between like Nietzsche and then Jung and then the people before Nietzsche, all the way back to Plato, right? It's an intergenerational conversation about a lot of the same topics that keep repeating over each other. It is like a dialogue, it is like a communication throughout history. And we can watch this. And so, in the Jewish people, there has been 2,000 years of genius and brilliant rabbis also having this type of intergenerational conversation. And a lot of them stand out. A lot of them contribute a lot to this conversation. And they speak about a wide range of topics. So, one of the topics they talk about is the discussion of the last exile of Rome and how it's split off into a secondary exile, and it's the secondary exile of Ishmael. And like they wrote all of this long before the conversation started on this, long before there was even an Islam. And now, I mean, Jews throughout the end of this exile were split between Arab countries and Muslim countries, right? Not all Muslims are Arabs, but in Muslim countries, and split in European countries. Um, and the Edomite exile, like the Rome exile, and the Ishmael exile sort of go together. And it's strange that the sages were able to pick up on this. And they have a conversation about this long before this ever even happened. And they pointed to just a few, like many things. So I was looking through them all, and I made a prediction. I'm not one to like take all this very literally. I'm a very skeptical person by nature. But let me just share the screen and talk about a prediction. I didn't make the prediction, but I saw it's from 2,000 years ago, right? So here's a video I had. I don't know if you can. Yeah, okay. Here's a video I did. You could see down here the date was January. It was in January 17th. Wow, on the 17th. I didn't notice that. So I made a video talking about what is Amalek, and in this video I brought up a prediction, and I said mid-April 2024, right, which is like 3 months later, that Iran will start shooting missiles at Israel. I thought maybe it's a nuclear missile. I had no idea what it was. But because this passage here was accompanied with more passages and dates, so I was able to decipher when it would actually be. If the prediction will take place, it'll take this year. Like it looks like this is what's happening. And when I put out this video, January 17th, it actually happened on April 17th. But when I put out this video, the bombing in Syria didn't even take place. Like, why would Iran even attack Israel? Why would they stick their head out? No one thought Iran would get involved. They would just use their proxies the whole time. It didn't make any sense for me to be right about this. I had absolutely no clue. And so when I put out this video, I was like, everyone's talking about doomsday scenarios throughout all of history, and everyone was always wrong about them. So that's my caveat. But it looks like maybe in April this would happen. And I mean, obviously, for me to actually come out and say it means I've been watching this prophecy for quite a while, and like I just kept narrowing down more and more and more and more, and I was like, okay, well, it's hit a critical mass. I'm going to put out a video on this and share it, right? And so it actually happened. Like this actually happened. It's something that sort of surprised everyone that this did happen. Like it wouldn't have made sense for anyone to predict this. Right? But anyways, I recently found something different in this conversation, and they pointed to a passage in the Torah. So they were talking about the last exile of Ishmael, and they used a passage from the Torah talking about this is going to be within Israel. Ishmael is going to cause us to suffer, and they pointed to this passage here. This is in Deuteronomy 32:21, and they talked about this that Israel will provoke God's jealousy with a non-God. We will be worshiping whatever a non-God is. Then he will provoke our jealousy with a non-people in this foolish nation. So like they were really pointing at this verse. And so what this is within the middle of a song called the Song of Haazinu. And I've always read this throughout my entire life. Like every year we read this passage, and we don't know what it means. We have no idea what it's talking about, right? It's this intergenerational conversation that pulls this out of the Torah and gives it some kind of context. And I just wanted to go through it with you guys because it looks like this is like there's lots of stuff pointing here. So I mean, at the end, it talks about how it was a song, right? Moses came out and spoke all the words of this song to the ears of the people, and he and Hoshea, son of Nun, and Moses finished speaking these words to all Israel. And he said to, right. So like this is a song that Moses sang to Israel and taught Israel, and they wrote it in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy. Now, I mean, like I've seen a lot of prophecies coming true, not in my lifetime specifically, but in, within these times, right? And it's just like one to one happening over and over again, right? But they're not, some of them are from the Torah, but they're always like very short passages, and most of them are all from prophets and other books. Like the one I brought you was from Yalkut Shimoni, which is a midrash, right? It's part of the conversation, but it's not part of, this is an entire song in the Torah. Like this is huge. Like if this is really happening, this is huge. And I never thought I would be able to, like, I thought maybe this already happened, or it's going to happen, or it's just an allegory. Like I never really knew, but like this is very exact this time. So I just wanted to go through it really quickly. So he's talking about destruction is not his. God is not the one doing the destruction. It's his children defect. I'm just going to read the English. I'm not going to bother translating the Hebrew. This is a Chabad website. Their translation is good enough. So his children's defect, you crooked and twisted generation. So he's talking about our generation. He's saying, I mean, if I'm right, he's talking about our generation. We're crooked and twisted, and it's not his destruction that's happening right now. It's our generation. Is this how you pay? Is this how you repay the Lord? You disgraceful, unwise people. He's talking to Israel too, or specifically. Is he not your father, your master? He has made you and established you, right? So this, I believe, is talking about the state of Israel. He's made the state of Israel and established us. Like, how are we so twisted? Remember the days of old? Now I'm thinking this is talking more about the exile and all of the troubles we've had. Reflect upon the years of generations. Ask your father, and he will tell you, right? We're still in a generation where we can ask our grandparents, your elders, and they will inform you about the Holocaust. They were there. They lived through it. There are still Holocaust survivors today. So ask them, like, look what God did for you. Like during the Holocaust, did you ever dream that this would be a reality? When the Most High gave nations their lot, he gave all the nations, like really the nations were all divided up after World War II. When he separated the sons of man, he set up boundaries of peoples according to the number of the children of Israel. Because the Lord's portion, his people, Jacob, the lot of his inheritance, the lot of his inheritance, the inheritance of Jacob is Israel. He found them in a desert land, in a desolate howling. So desert also many times, like I'm not just interpreting this now and putting a twist on it. Desert really refers to exile many times. And desolate, howling wasteland. He encompassed them and bestowed understanding upon them. He protected them as the pupil of his eye. So he did, yes. He protected us throughout all of exile. As an eagle awakens its nest, hovering over its fledglings, it spreads its wings, taking them and carrying them on its pinions. So God carries us back to the land, right? On the wings of eagles. This is where the wings of eagles comes from, right? The other prophecies from the prophets. This is strictly from Moses. This is directly from Moses. So he's talking about the wings of eagles. So all those prophecies came true, that he would return us to our lands on the wings of eagles. And this is well, talking about the same thing. The Lord guided them alone, and there was no alien deity with them. That we had no other God. We only had our God the entire time. He made them ride upon high places of the earth, that they would eat the produce of the field. He let them suck honey from a rock, and oil, the cream of cattle, and the milk of sheep, the fat of lambs, the rams of Bashan, with the kidneys of wheat, would drink the blood of grapes, which was his finest wine, right? So this is all stuff that happens after we came back to Israel. We have bounty. We have, like, it's just crazy. We are a very prosperous land and nation here. And yeah, wine, we're producing wine. We're like one of the biggest wine producers in the world, in Israel, and very quality wine. They win awards. So it's anyways. And Yeshurun is another name for Israel as well, became fat and rebelled. You grew fat, thick, and rotund. Israel forsook the God who made them and spurned the rock of their salvation, right? He was the one who saved us, who brought us back to Israel, and we're forgetting him. They provoked his zeal with alien worship. They made him angry with abomination deeds. They sacrificed to demons, which have no power, deities they did not know, new things that only recently came, which your forefathers did not fear. So there are very many new things now. And what comes to mind is the idea of hasbara. Hasbara, I'm like Americanizing the language on purpose so you can look it up. Hasbara is like lasbir is to explain, right? So we're making all kinds of explanations of what's happening now and why it's happening. We're trying to demystify everything, right? This miraculous stuff. No, it's just natural. It's just cause and effect. We're here because we're a democratic nation. That's why you should, that Israel is the only democratic nation in the Middle East. we're tolerant, and like all of this stuff is called Hezbollah. We're just all trying to explain things and demystify it. It's just very well known today. This, like, there's even a word for it, right? And so it's interesting that this is calling a little bit on that. You forgot the mighty rock who bore you. You forgot the God who delivered you. And the Lord saw this and became angry, provoked his sons and daughters. He said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, right? So he's going to, he's okay. You don't want me involved? You don't believe in me? You don't want me involved anymore? Fine. I'll step out of the way and see what happens. For they are a generation of changes, tafuchot, inversing. They're a generation that's right. We're a generation that's reversing the past. We're getting rid of tradition. We're getting rid of gender roles. We're getting rid of like all kinds of stuff. We're a generation that's just changing all of history, all of what we've inherited, right? They're not recognizable as my children whom I have reared. This is strange because it's also what all the nations are saying. Oh, that's not the real Israel. That's not the real Jewish people. The real Jewish people are back then. You guys are just colonizers. You were right. This is what, right? This is what happens when God hides his face from us. No one recognizes us. They have provoked my jealousy with a non-God. Atheism, right, is a non-God. They've provoked my anger with their vanities. Thus, I will provoke their jealousy with a non-people, provoke their anger with a foolish nation. So this non-people and foolish nation is, I read it earlier. This is what the intergenerational conversation was talking about, pointing, this is Ishmael. They said, this is Ishmael, and this is in this nation of Israel. This is in this in Israel, at the end of the exile of Ishmael, this non-people, this non-nation is going to attack us. For a fire blazed in my wrath and burned the lowest depth. It consumed the land and its produce, setting aflame the foundation of mountains. Okay, so I mean, this is part of what was happening. A lot of the rockets that came through were really setting fires in the north as well. I will link evils upon them. What is it like? Link? Yeah, it's like I will link it's like the ring of fire. He will, like, all of these different proxies. All of these different proxies are all linking together and attacking Israel. I will use up my arrows on them. Arrows, like, what are arrows attacking Israel? It's missiles. So he's really, like, we're seeing this play out today. All of the evils are linking up and the arrows are shooting together onto Israel. They will sprout hair from famine. We're having a bit of a famine here. Attacked by demons, exercised by Merari. I will incite the teeth of livestock upon them with the venom of creatures that slither in the dust. So this is very allegorical, but yes, from outside of Israel, the sword will bereave, and terror from within, young men, maidens, suckling babies with vulnerable elders. These are all the victims of the October 7th attacks. Women, babies, like beheading babies, and Holocaust survivors and elders, old people, and they took them captive. I said that I would make an end of them, eradicate the remembrance from mankind, right? God will just eradicate Israel from mankind, where that's what God would have done, were it not that the enemy's wrath has heaped up, lest their adversaries distort, right? So distorting narratives. So the only reason I'm not going to destroy Israel is if I did, everyone else would distort the narrative. They would claim our hand was triumphant. We beat Israel. The Lord did none of this. That's what the enemies would say, right? And that's exactly what they are saying. No, God is with us. God is not with them. God was going to help us beat them, right? This whole thing. And this is something that I've found comfort in for a while. It's like, why would God do all of these miracles, gather us into Israel, protect us in every war, make us super strong, a superpower, able to defend ourselves? Like, why would God do all of this just to have us destroyed? It doesn't make any sense. Like, God would just be a laughingstock. Like, what is his promise worth? What is our covenant with God worth if he's not going to protect us now? And so God is taking this, or sorry, Moses in this story is taking this in a slightly different direction. You know what? You don't even deserve to be saved, but I'll save you just so that the enemy can't say they defeated me, right? That I did none of this. For they are a nation devoid of counsel, and they have no understanding. If they were wise, they would understand. They would reflect upon their fate, right? It's really simple. Like, take a look around you. It's like, this is what I like. This is now, just so you know, not all of Israel is like this. This is just the center of mass of Israel, right? The center of mass of Israel is very unaware, but there are people who are very aware of the time we're living in. They're very aware of the process, and it just feels like natural. It's just like, oh yeah, this is happening now. This is happening now. Like we already know the whole process. Like this is just one phase in the process. We know what happened before. We know what's going to happen next, right? After this conflict, we know that we're going to have to deal with Greece again, right? And whatever Greece is it's an ideology and it's an assimilating ideology. And I don't want to go too deep into the next phase of things. I don't know if it's my children's generation or the grandchildren's generation. I just know that that's what's going to happen after this stage. But this stage right now is like, we should be aware that this is actually what's happening, right? How can one person pursue 1,000 and put 10,000 to flight unless God has sold them out and the Lord has given them over? How is Israel beating their enemies? Like we're outnumbered, outgunned throughout the entire state of Israel. We've always been outnumbered and outgunned. How is that possible without God? How's that possible? How is it possible that Iran shot all those rockets into Israel and we defended them all and then we retaliated the way we did? How is all that possible? For their rock is not like our mighty rock. Nevertheless, our enemies sit in judgment. For their vine is of the vine of Sodom and the field of Gomorrah. The grapes are grapes of Rosh, and they have bitter clusters. The wine is bitterness of serpents and the bitterness of ruthless cobras. Is it not stored up with me, sealed in my treasuries? Vengeance is poised with me, right? God is ready to put vengeance, and it will pay at the time of their foot stumbles, right? What happens? At the time our foot stumbles, when we become neglectful and we'll stumble, right? So that's when we'll pay. For the appointed day of the reckoning is near, and what is destined for them hastens. It's going to happen. It's accelerating. What's destined for Israel is accelerating. When the Lord will judge his people and will reconsider his servants, and he sees that the power is increasing and none is controlled or strengthened, then he will say, where is their deity, the rock in which they trusted? He's not here. He's not protecting us. Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their libations? Let them arise and help you. Let them be your shelter. Oh, you're trusting all of this other stuff? You're trusting America? You're trusting, yeah, just trust them. They'll protect you, right? See now that it is I. I am the one, and there is no God like me. I cause death and grant life. I strike, but I heal, and no one can rescue from my hand. For I raise up my hand to heaven and say, as I live forever, when I sharpen the blade of my sword and my hand grasps judgment, I will bring vengeance upon my adversaries and repay those who hate me. I will intoxicate my arrows with blood. So God's arrows will completely succeed in spilling blood, and my sword will consume flesh from the blood of the slain and captives, from the first breach of the enemy, right? So God is going to take revenge on the first breach of the enemy, which took captives. It's just crazy. So it seems like Israel is going to be very successful. Sing out praise, O you nations, for his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, inflict revenge upon his adversaries, and appease his land and his people. And Moses came and spoke the words of songs to the ears of, okay. So that's the end of the song. So it's okay, maybe, it's just all nonsense. Maybe I'm seeing patterns that aren't there. I haven't ever seen this happen throughout history, whatever is described here. Maybe it's going to happen in the future. Maybe this is all true and it's going to happen with some other people, but it's like, this is explaining what's happening now. And this is in the Torah. Like, it's not a side prophet. This is Moses talking about what's going to happen in the future, because Moses is not going in Israel. And this is a song that he's teaching us. Like, this is just a huge, like, if this is what's happening now, this is huge. This is from the Torah. Like, this doesn't happen very often, that something from the Torah happens. Like, it talks about our exile, and that happened. It talks about, like, it very monumental things. So whatever is happening now is monumental in the process. And here is the end of the process. There's no speak about Messiah at the end of this. There's no speak about any further process after this, right? So basically all it's saying is Israel is going to succeed and God will avenge the kidnappings. But I mean, this is the Torah. What am I going to argue with Moses? He's long gone. So, I mean, anyways, I wanted to share this with you, that this is actually quite significant. And this is probably the end of it. Like, this intergenerational conversation talks a lot more about this process and has a lot more details about what's going to happen with all this. But like, as soon as they point to a place in the Torah, and then you go look at the Torah and you're just like, oh, it's all here. Yeah, it's all here. So, I mean, this should wake us up. I'm predicting it won't wake us up. No one's going to make the connection between this and that we deserved it and that we're not, we're believing in a non-God and that we're doing all this Hasbara stuff. Most of Israel won't make this connection. Most of Israel won't repent. It doesn't say anywhere here that we're going to repent. It just says, yeah, God's going to protect us and save us, even though we don't deserve it, right? That's all it says. And yeah, we definitely don't deserve it. I'm sharing it for your benefit to see it, not because I'm trying to push a view or an ideology or because I'm like, hey, believe in this. I'm just like, oh, this is curious. This is interesting. Let me share it so that you're aware that this exists, right? It's just really weird because like I wasn't shocked to actually see that this was there. It's just like, yeah, because I've read this my whole life and I knew about the process my whole life and I knew about this intergenerational conversation my whole life. So it's just like when things start happening, it's just like, oh, yeah, yeah, that was supposed to happen. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. But I mean, like, go ahead, continue believing what you want to believe. Anyways, have a good one.